Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. Data with the latest WWE edition of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and we are on the road in Manhattan, New York City, New York, where the Silver King is attending the second of two home games for the New York Knickerbockers in the 2026 NBA Finals. Let's just say Game 3 did not go the way Silver King expected, and hoping for a much different and better result here in Game 4. But we are not here on this show to discuss the NBA. No, we are here to talk about everything that happened over the last week in the world of WWE. We'll get to all the details of how exactly we are going to do that this week in a moment. Before we do, though, Silver King needs to remind you here at the Getting Over Wrestling Podcast,
it's all about the five.
So please head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, do not forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show on YouTube. You can subscribe to the show, listen to it, and you can watch full-length video interviews across the board. No matter where you want to find us, you can do it at Getting Overcast. So look, just because of a variety of issues entirely on the Silver King's end, this is going to be a solo episode of Getting Over. I'm going to break down everything that happened in the world of WWE this week. Vintage Chris Vanini will join us later in the week, most likely Thursday, taping for a Friday publish. He's going to give his top takes on WWE this week. We're also going to cover some WWE news that I frankly just don't have time to discuss as part of this episode. So we'll give you a robust main event in our second episode this week. And then, of course, Silver King will also break down NXT. I will try to break down AEW as well. It just is going to depend how much time I have to watch, an additional 4 to 5 hours of wrestling before the end of the week is out. We're not going to waste any further time getting into it on today's show. The long and short of it from TV this week, I thought it was one of the best SmackDowns of the year, despite, again, a ton of distraction and interference finishes. They were less egregious than 2 weeks ago, still frustrating. Certainly one of the best editions of Monday Night Raw in 2026, too, especially from an in-ring perspective. If you argue it was the best episode of the year due to the Paris crowd, I'm not going to tell you otherwise. Every single match delivered on that program, and it was a blast to watch, even though I had to do it in 3 different parts between Monday and Tuesday, just to get it done so we could, of course, break down this entire show. Speaking of breaking down everything that happened on Raw and SmackDown, let's not waste any time getting to it. We're going to kick it off, as we always do, by sliding into the main event.
This is the main event!
Gunther interrupted the opening of SmackDown, continuing a trend of WWE moving away from repetitive show starts.
Thank you!
He tore apart the Italian and English announce tables, angry that he intentionally executed a rope break, only for it to be completely ignored by an incompetent referee, with Cody Rhodes happy to benefit from it because he's a cheating golden boy. It really sounds like Victor Wembanyama and the NBA refs, but okay. Cody interrupted him, telling Gunther that he's 100% correct, but he's also a 20-year veteran throwing a fit for no reason because Cody's willing to rematch right away. Sami Zayn butted into the proceedings, at which point I smacked myself in the head for not seeing the obvious booking coming from a mile away prior weeks. Sammy's actually getting a hero welcome here in Europe, and he got a crowd chant as well, so he praised his ride or die fans accordingly. Zayn said he knows what it's like to be robbed of a world championship, but both of them have done him wrong recently. Gunther told Sammy to shut up since he's not at the main event level, so Zayn retorted that he beat him for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. Rhodes said he knows Zayn is a good guy deep down, despite what's been happening recently, but he's been all over him while he's been otherwise occupied. So Sammy pointed out that Cody is overlooking his legitimate contention. Zayn reminded that Rhodes planned to teach him a lesson after he beat Gunther, and he already beat Gunther, so when's it time to teach him a lesson? Gunther shoved Cody into Sammy, but got Rhodes in a sleeper, but this time, Sammy actually saved Cody, or at least he wanted to fight Gunther as well. Cody wound up inadvertently catching Sammy with a tope suicida, and a handshake after that was refused. As I said, I feel like a dummy for not seeing this booking coming a mile away. It gets Zayn into the main event of Night of Champions, a Blood Money in the Sand show, but in a WWE title match against two top guys on the brand, almost whetting the Saudi fans' appetite for him to be in a similar situation next April at a WrestleMania. That was smart booking. And how we got to the point was pretty solid too, from Zayn's perspective at least. Gunther tearing up the desks, it worked to show his frustration as well. The lone criticism I had is that the setup is extremely similar to what happened with Drew McIntyre last year, but that was put into focus more in the segment that followed. Gunther backstage found Nick Aldis, saying he's been disrespected since the second he arrived at SmackDown. Aldis said he's sharing the same level of respect that Gunther gives him, so he threatened to have his lawyers overwhelm him with paperwork. Sammy later smacked a water bottle against a wall, getting back to his gimmick.
Thank you!
Before finding and ranting at a comatose Johnny Gargano, who got a pop when he appeared on screen. Zayn again equated himself to Gargano before confronting Aldis, who told him to stay out of WWE Championship business because he's only increasing tensions. Sammy was enraged when Nick brushed him off because he had a more important meeting scheduled, and Chad Gable entered the picture, receiving a legitimate main event level appearance pop with chants from the crowd. Understandable considering he wasn't on WWE TV for, 12 months at that point. It was absolutely incredible to hear that from Gable. It seriously bothered me that he was on SmackDown, considering what I laid out last week in terms of the absolute perfect return storyline for him to go after Penta and contend for the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam in Minnesota, to literally bring his angle full circle at home. But let's put a pin in that because we saw him again later. It's just how I felt in the moment. I always tell you how I feel when something is happening and then how I feel about it afterward. We're also going to put a pin in the Gunther situation as well, because more developed there. But Aldis's dismissiveness of Zayn, it felt like a teacher pushing aside legitimate concerns of a kid in his class simply because he's annoying. It's not necessarily his job to operate based on his opinion. You know what I mean? Rey Fenix backstage offered either member of Fraxium a chance at his new AAA Cruiserweight Championship, considering he wanted to defend it all over the world. Hey, crazy that we're talking about Fenix and Fraxium in the main event of this show. But that's because Gable interrupted, again getting a tremendous ovation, saying he was visiting primarily to talk to Fenix as they had a great match at WrestleMania 41, but it was under false pretenses with El Grande Americano. He said that he realized Lucha Libre is not a joke, it's a responsibility, and so he was there to not only apologize, but to ask for forgiveness. Fenix was pleased Gable understands the culture. He said losing the mask is punishment enough, but there's many others whom Gable offended that deserve similar apologies. This made me feel so much better about Gable's appearance on the show. If he's going on a tour of making amends, the vast majority of the luchadors are obviously on Raw, and as I mentioned a moment ago, Penta is the primary one against whom he previously feuded. So this keeps that no-brainer booking around the Intercontinental title on the table. WWE could also strap the Rocket and have Gunther win the World Championship, the WWE title from Cody, and have Gable dethrone him like he should have at WrestleMania a few years ago, but for a bigger belt this time. We know that's hoping for too much. So let's not put the cart before the horse. It's just a possibility. It was also positive that Gable appears to be positioned as a pure babyface now. It has me wondering in this moment, is that going to rub off on the Creed brothers and Ivy Nile? Does he need to sit them down and give them a talking to? This is our direction, our perspective. Here's where I was wrong, but I'm still your leader. This was a relatively perfect return appearance for Gable, so kudos to Creative for getting it right on SmackDown. Aldis later confirmed with Rhodes that he was willing to defend the title in a rematch. He informed Cody that Gunther's lawyers have already agreed to get it done on the condition that Gunther announces a stipulation next week. Rhodes then confirmed with Aldis that meant the match would happen in 2 weeks back in Kansas City. Okay, so I can finally now get to the point that I was trying to make earlier. On the surface, there's nothing wrong with running an angle like this. It's logical, and we all know the stipulation will somehow get negated, resulting in the Night of Champions triple threat. I don't even mind the whole rehashing of the Golden Boy concept, considering, Cody's the Golden Boy. Like, that's his role in WWE right now, and multiple heels seeing him in that way and feeling like he is that type of character, that's totally fine. The part that's frustrating is that this feels exactly like the Drew McIntyre booking repeated only a few months later with another European heel. Screwed out of the title, refuses to rematch until he gets a stipulation, etc. I know there are only so many ways to go in professional wrestling, but doing it in such a short time frame with heels throwing fits and stomping their feet, getting a stipulation of their choosing, and so on, it is way too similar. Also, am I expected to believe that Raheem Rhodes is actually going to lose the title to an Austrian on Juneteenth?
No!
Rey Mysterio got a promo package on Raw during which he spoke about being the standard bearer for Lucha Libre in WWE for more than 2 decades. Penta put over Rey's legacy, while Mysterio praised his star power and ability to become a major player so quickly. Penta called him the GOAT and a living legend, saying defending the Intercontinental Championship against him is an honor and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Rey said it's an honor for him too, and the match was billed as historic throughout the package, which was tremendous. It made me believe that with a longer build, like this deserved a bigger stage on a PLE. It didn't even main event a huge Raw in Paris, the best crowd WWE gets annually at this juncture, but it could have been the final match on a Saturday night's main event, or a big PLE match at SummerSlam, or Night of Champions. So I was a little bit surprised they kind of gave it away on Raw, but the Paris crowd deserves a great show, and they certainly got a great match here. Gable later confronted Penta backstage, saying he spiraled and did a lot of shameful stuff the last couple of years, including insulting an entire culture by impersonating a luchador. He reminded that the spiral began with Penta and Gable taking the loss in his debut WWE match. He said, "I'm sorry," and Penta seemed to accept it, as it takes a lot to admit when one is wrong. However, Penta said there's someone higher up he needs to make good with too. I'm loving the angle and the babyface push. It would have been nice if Gable told Penta he was still after the title in a respectful manner, that he would earn his way back to being number one contender and hope to face him in the future, despite his apology and despite his respect. As I've stated, the storyline is still too perfect not to do it. Also, I hoped in this moment WWE did not forget that Gable tried to rip off Dragon Lee's mask. So while, yes, he needs to make amends with Rey, the king of the luchadors, he should also be making good with Dragon, whom he also wronged. Well, Gable took a deep breath later in the show before confronting both Rey and Dragon. Dragon immediately let him off the hook, telling him to take it easy because now he understands the importance of the mask, and Dragon knows he will not disrespect the culture again. Rey told Chad to stop beating himself up because he demonstrated true lucha libre in Máscara contra Máscara. Gable took another deep breath of relief, but before he departed, Mysterio took him aside. He told Gable he probably needs to look back even further and make more amends beyond the confines of lucha. It's just more proof that they're nailing this booking in every conceivable way. As soon as I had a thought in my head about Dragon, boom, they delivered on it. I did find this acceptance from Rey to be a bit too simple, but he was literally at the mask versus mask match, and he is the general manager of AAA, so he would theoretically have seen Gable's regret and atonement much closer already. They probably should have mentioned that on screen. I presumed what they were referencing with Gable having other people he needs to apologize to were Alpha Academy, which, okay, I guess he does need to do that. I'm far less interested in it comparatively, and I certainly hope there's no rekindling of a relationship there, but making good with other baby faces, it's plausible and it can certainly work for him. But I am curious to see how they ultimately pay off all of this stuff. What I will say, though, Chad Gable's apology tour is, a million times better than Roman Reigns' equivalent, considering, Reigns never atoned for anything, didn't apologize, and is basically the same guy he was before, except now he's getting cheered instead of booed. So we had an Intercontinental Championship match, as mentioned. Penta defending against Rey Mysterio. Beautiful counter springboard moonsault to the outside by Rey after an early flurry. French fans chanted Lucha Libre, which was a cool moment. Penta hit a nice counter backstabber out of the corner. They followed with the phenomenal chant, which Rey delivered upon with his sunset flip powerbomb ringside sliding out of the ring. Penta driver followed after the break. Rey, a 52-year-old, landed a Poison Rana, but somewhat landed on his head. After a slight hesitation, he followed with a 619 and a slingshot splash for a false finish. Rey countered a second Penta driver attempt, hitting a 619, but Penta got knees up on a subsequent frog splash and hit a Mexican Destroyer to retain the title. He went head-to-head with Rey immediately after the bell on the canvas, clearly a sign of respect, and thanks for putting him over in WWE. Excellent match. It needed one final stanza to hit the full A range. The commercial breaks hindered it to a degree. This would have been an absolute banger, like I said, on a PLE or Saturday night's main event. And I can argue it should have been saved for a show like that. I'd love to see a rematch at some point before Rey retires. Chances are this will be the one time they go head-to-head, especially with the title on the line. It remains crazy how well Rey can work at this age, and Penta did a lot to protect him throughout. Again, not much more you could want other than 5 additional minutes, 4 stars, A-. Ethan Page and Rusev attacked the luchadors shortly after the bell, with Rusev locking Rey in the accolade. Dragon saved with some Japanese-inspired gear, which was interesting. He cleared the ring with relative ease, but Page tripped him up and rocketed his ass into the timekeeper's area. So Rusev ripped off Rey's mask, holding it in the air like a trophy, as Penta threw his own body atop his mentor for protection. Gable, who ran out to his old American Alpha entrance music, not American Made, American Alpha, from all the way back in NXT. He made an explosive second save. He German suplexed the shit out of the heels, then forced Page into an ankle lock before Page got pulled out of the ring by Rusev. As Penta and Dragon shielded Rey, Chad returned the mask, they put it back on Rey, and they got a huge ovation. Talk about capitalizing on a return and a moment. Gable continues to be positioned perfectly. Just look at how often I've said that and how often he has been featured on the first 2 TV shows coming out of Mascara Contra Mascara, well, once he was able to get to Europe. Extremely curious to see where this is going and if they can truly hit a grand slam, because so far it has been utter perfection in terms of character, presentation, babyface pops, the whole 9 yards. The American Alpha theme was the cherry on top. Give me the Ready, Willing, and Gable towel. Give me the Kurt Angle-esque dedication to the craft of professional wrestling. Give this guy a rocket bootstrap, and let's see how far he can freaking go. I know he's a shorter dude, and he's probably not a WWE main eventer for that world title. At a minimum, he needs to win his first mid-card title, and if the response to that is awesome, then you really need to consider doing something with him in the true main event of these shows. Let's move on to the second half of this main event. Trick Williams finished watching a Carmelo Hayes-Ricky Saints match we will discuss later, big-upping himself ahead of King of the Ring quarterfinal while calling Hayes and Saints peasants, effectively fighting for the chance to meet him. Williams put himself alongside other legends who have won the tournament, only to get confronted by Braun Breaker for a brief stare-down. This was all ahead of the match, not gradable, but it was perfectly fine as a preamble. So we had Dominic Mysterio, Breaker, Trick, and Damian Priest in a King of the Ring quarterfinal. Unlike both women's equivalent matches, Morgan joined Mysterio ringside live for this one. Braun was obviously shot out of a cannon early, hitting a runaround shoulder tackle on Dom. I believe the fans in Italian chanted "Let's go Breaker" with barks instead of claps. Breaker and Priest delivered perhaps the best Breakensteiner that has been executed on the main roster. Braun usually misses half of them, but this one he absolutely nailed. Speaking of missing, though, something happened with his press slam on Dom, who ate shit taking it to the side of his body. Trick had a nice run with a cyclone kick, leaping neckbreaker, bookend. There was a fun corner spot where Trick got Dom in an electric chair, so Damian, who was on the ropes, demanded he bring Dom closer so Priest could beat him up a little bit. Priest took a superplex afterward, but Liv later distracted as he tried to win after a razor's edge on Dom. Braun caught him with what was supposed to be a press power slam, but Priest fell off his shoulders. Then Breaker tried black hole slam on Williams, but was barely able to lift him. Breaker hit a spear on Priest, only to eat trick shot with Mysterio pulling the referee. So Dom took a trick slap before Williams ate a leaping apron lariat through the announce table. JD McDonough jumped into the ring only to eat a chokeslam, a distraction that allowed Morgan to interfere with a blatant low blow. 619 and a frog splash followed, with Dom pulling off the upset. Now, I appreciated the winner and loser in this spot, given their history, and I found it particularly interesting how much time Breaker and Williams spent wrestling each other, considering they're in similar positions on opposite brands. Priest seems to have lost a step, but he largely did well here. If Braun had executed all of his moves perfectly, this might have been borderline 4 stars A-, but when you combine the constant strange mess-ups with the significant interference, this was around a B or B+ ultimately. Liv and JD helping Dom should fuel Roxanne Perez's fire and Raquel Rodriguez's too, considering neither of them got any help. It cost Perez. Rodriguez would have won more easily. It was a great main event for SmackDown, regardless of any opinion on match quality, and Mysterio going up against Oba Femi in the semifinal was extremely interesting booking, as you could simultaneously see him being an irritating loser who does not get hurt by it, or an irritating winner due to Brock Lesnar involvement. Oba opened Raw, and dare I say it was the best entrance of his career, second best of 2026 after Hiroshi Tanahashi's entrance for his retirement match at the Tokyo Dome. I mean, holy shit, this thing had everything. 2 consecutive loud-ass chants that went on forever to the point he couldn't even cut a promo. The incredible spotlight in the crowd, the pose in the ring with the other spotlight. Before I continue, we've talked about strapping the rocket to this guy, considering the possibility that WWE probably cannot have him win King of the Ring and beat a world champion at SummerSlam, because at that point, what the hell do you do with him when his reign ends? You know what? I don't know that I care. Strap the effing rocket, win King of the Ring, beat Brock Lesnar on night 1 of SummerSlam, win a world title on night 2, or at least set up a scenario where Even if he somehow loses the title match, he wins it at WrestleMania. This is how I felt before this dude even spoke on Monday. I was in bed at like 2 a.m. transfixed on this segment. Anyway, Femi said, like Paul Heyman, he does not have a prediction but a spoiler. He'll run through King of the Ring. And then he accentuated Heyman's phrase, which just restarted the chants. Oba turned his attention to Brock afterward, saying he's not a big bad beast, but a big bad bitch with whom he would settle the score. Frankly, that's all I needed. Segment could have ended there, 10 out of 10. But Dominic entered. He amped up it entirely to another degree, drawing immense heat that he had to scream over, just followed by huge Oba chants. This was ridiculously great. Dom said normal heel shit, and that was just a distraction for McDonough to attack from behind with a steel chair. Femi completely no-sold it, totally unfazed. He punched the chair into JD's head, ate a 619, and chased them out of the ring. And then he punctuated it, saying Rey Mysterio may be Dom's father, but Oba will become his daddy. It was already a 10 out of 10. You add the heels, it kept it a 10 out of 10. Perfection achieved. Femi addressed both huge topics he's facing. Dom shows some level of guts as a chicken shit heel. We got a preview of the semifinal match, and they both ended the segment as bigger stars than they were coming into it. McDonough not so much, but that's okay. Unfortunately, despite what I said earlier, calling out Lesnar like that, it does lead one to believe Brock will interfere next week and cost Oba, sending Dom through to the final. Hell, he could even F5 Dom, force the DQ, and laugh in Femi's face for costing him King of the Ring. I personally don't love finishes like that in a tournament format, but I would understand, and if anyone was going to benefit from it, Dom would be the right person to benefit from it. It would be unfortunate because, look, even though we want the rubber match, Oba, Brock, Part 3, I'm greedy at this point. I want both. I want them to get their rubber match. I want Oba in the King of the Ring final. The rubber match is not going to happen at Night of Champions. We know this. So now you're going to wait all the way until August for an interference in mid-June. That is why I'm hesitant to say for sure that Lesnar is going to interfere and cost Femi and help Mysterio win. They could have Oba win this whole thing. They could have Lesnar cost him at Night of Champions, which would be, it'd be more devastating for Oba, and it would get more heat on Brock, but also be even worse from a booking standpoint in terms of not being able to finish King of the Ring clean, which it really should always finish clean. The whole tournament should be wrestled clean, King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring. So that is kind of where my potential frustration lies. But again, coming out of Monday night, what we got with Oba specifically, but Oba and Dom, you really could not ask for more from it. Now, there is plenty still for us to cover across Raw and SmackDown this week, but before we get to that, Silver King does need to remind you that whether it is Raw, SmackDown, NXT, premium live events on Netflix, these days, we at the Getting Over Wrestling podcast are all in with NordVPN. It's easy to set up a drastically better viewing experience each night. You get the same high-quality streams, except they become commercial-free shows. All you have to do is sign up at nordvpn.com/gettingover, open the app, quick connect to another country like the United Kingdom, France, Italy, open Netflix, and watch the program of your choice. NordVPN also allows you to get around online censorship and surveillance while protecting your private data. Plus, one account can be used on 10 different devices. To get the best discount, go to nordvpn.com/gettingover. Our link will give you 4 extra free months off the 2-year plan. And best of all, there's no risk, nor does a 30-day money-back guarantee. So improve your WWE viewing, save money, browse safer online, and get the best discount for the best VPN at nordvpn.com/gettingover. It is great to have Nord as the official singular sponsor of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Now, with that said, let's jump into everything else that happened across Raw and SmackDown this week, and you know exactly how we're going to tackle it. We will be covering the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Hey, yo. Survey says one more for the good guy.
Say hello to the bad.
Don't sing it. Bring it.
Carmelo Hayes fought Ricky Saints. A notable portion of the crowd was doing Saints' hands gestures, which was really positive. They also popped big for Hayes. Ricky attacked before the bell, which led to Melo hitting a frog splash with his entrance jacket still on. Hayes landed La Mystica, but Saints countered first 48, hit the Revolution DDT for a surprise false finish. Melo came off a similar counter with a first 48. Got an equal 2.8 count. Melo then beat a countout at 9.9, but after another extended counter sequence, Saints caught Hayes in an O'Connor roll, grabbing the tights for a dirty 1-2-3. That effectively evened the series at 1-1 after 3 matches, creating the need for, an additional showdown, which will likely serve, I believe, as a number 1 contendership for the United States Championship. Solid be a fair. Again, clearly these guys were holding back for what will eventually be the final match. Worse is that I believe this was the 3rd time Hayes has now been thrown into this extended match series on the back of what he did with Andrade and then Ilya Dragunov previously. Is this what WWE can do with him? Like, there's definitely worse positions to be in, but does all he do fight 3, 5, and 7 game series and win a United States Championship and do open challenges in between? Like, there's got to be more to Carmelo Hayes than that. He's super over. The fans are buying into him. He just requires better booking. Whether that's ever going to come from SmackDown, who the hell knows? This segment, though, it was indeed good. Royce Keys fought Tala Tonga.
Oh, we got 2 big meaty men bumping me tonight!
The big men battled back and forth for a while until Royce took the upper hand with an impressive power slam. MFT both interfered in an odd sequence, allowing Tala to catch Royce with a running boot and then hit his chokeslam for the win. MFT attacked Keys after the bell, so R-Truth saved, but then Damian Priest, a babyface, who teamed with Royce, but got victimized by MFT just last week, he came out and pulled Truth away. Priest later told Truth he only cares about him and King of the Ring, not Keys. Royce later told Truth he felt like he's been jumped and he knows that will happen plenty during his time in WWE. He appreciated Truth having his back, so Truth made a joke about DP and again insisted they all team up. He said that he and Priest clearly have issues, so they need to settle it. Solo Sikoa, then found Keys backstage acknowledging how Roman Reigns put Fatu down like a dog, reminding Royce that he needs backup because all of his relationships are falling apart. Keys said he didn't bust his ass to get to WWE just to listen to Sikoa, but Solo countered that no one he believes has his back has ever stuck up for him, whereas he, Solo, brought all of MFT to WWE and stuck up for Royce apparently off screen. Sikoa said their side needs to get ready for war and he should stop being difficult or it will become difficult for him. This was straight up ugly. I don't even need to explain it before giving you the grade. This was effing ugly. The match creative was mind-numbing. Why the fuck is Tala Tonga being booked like he's prime 98 Kane? You had Keys' name in the mouth of Roman Reigns on the back of those multiple believable segments with Jacob Fatu. You had him go toe-to-toe with Gunther in a surprise number 1 contendership match a couple of weeks ago. Why in the blue hell do you now have him losing to the worst member of the worst faction on the main roster, especially after eating a boot and taking a chokeslam? Why did this get 3 segments on SmackDown when other people on the show can't get any time and matches get cut short? If Keys had kicked out of the chokeslam looking strong and then MFT attacked him 3-on-1 for a DQ, or even if he got beat with a second chokeslam after kicking out of the first one, something else, okay. I'd still grade it bad, but at least I might be able to make some sense of it. Instead, despite this being
Big meaty man slapping meat. That's what I want.
this was just straight up dog shit. It's completely nonsensical for his character. It's an easy ugly. Priest remains irrationally distrustful of Keys, who has done nothing but rebuff advances from Sikoa to this point, and Royce being stuck in the MFT vortex is a total degradation of what seemed to be legitimate momentum propelling him to the upper mid-card, maybe even the main event it seemed like at one point. I have absolutely no idea what they are doing with this guy, and if they think this is good creative or good booking to get him over, it is not. No one gives a flying F about MFT. The War Raiders randomly showed up on SmackDown with their new AAA Tag Team Championships, confronting Truth and saying they were not done, they wanted more gold. Like I said, random. I figured they were full-time AAA performers at this juncture, but as I've said when reviewing those shows recently, the War Raiders are a better team than most of the main rosters since those releases. So it's nice that they're getting some run, and SmackDown, having them on there, it's a fresh move. So hopefully it works out. Seth Rollins backstage put the vision in his past, focusing on King of the Ring and winning back the title he never lost. He said that meant he would be aiming for Reigns, who doesn't win titles on his own and can't beat Rollins when it matters, especially a title that was his. This did come across as plausible for the SummerSlam booking. There was talk of that after it got pushed off WrestleMania 42. They have other plans in store for a WrestleMania. I find it more likely to happen, Reigns and Rollins, if someone from SmackDown wins King of the Ring, not Rollins winning and then challenging Roman. I'd prefer the bigger stage of WrestleMania for them to fight, but you know what? 9 weeks build would be plenty, especially considering they have so much history, and this does not need to be their last chapter, just their next chapter. Anyway, Montez Ford backstage dapped up Rollins, wishing him luck in King of the Ring because he deserves it. Rollins asked how Angelo Dawkins was doing when the Bloodline confronted like jock bullies from a high school movie. Jay even hit his fist into his hand like some nerds were in need of a pounding in the showers. He said he would win King of the Ring and take the title off Cody, so I guess this is not brand specific this year. Rollins pointed out Jimmy isn't even in the tournament. He's been so marginalized, and Seth clarified that he wasn't even talking about the family, just Roman. He criticized them for going back to, just running business for Reigns, missing out on greater successes. As Jacob Fatu kind of paced in the background, he eventually confronted Rollins, and then he ultimately departed despite Jay trying to sick him on Seth at the end of the segment. Jay confronted Jacob about this later, with Jimmy telling Fatu he's supposed to run their plays. Fatu again reminded, I never acknowledged you guys. I acknowledged the OTC, and you should be more worried about LA Knight than directing Jacob on what to do. Then he called them ass, which was just straight up funny to me for some reason. Look, having Rollins mention Reigns' name in the manner he did, that was intriguing. And therefore, the rest of the Bloodline taking issue with that was perfectly sensible. Following up on Jacob acknowledging Roman, but not paying mind to what Jay says, despite Reigns putting Jay in charge of Fatu as like a handler, that's important too. I love the way Fatu came across here, despite our reservations about him being part of the new Bloodline. It's important for him to be bought into Reigns out of respect for the Ulafala. That doesn't mean he should see himself as any lower than number 2 on the totem pole, though. The infighting with the Usos, it may work incredibly well. There were no lies in terms of what Rollins said, and WWE being so blatant reconnecting the sides, it makes me believe this is part of the SummerSlam storyline. All 3 segments were good. Definitely had some ears perked up after this ended. LA Knight hit the ring following the break, missing a microphone tossed into the ring like a Stone Cold Steve Austin beer. He stared down the dude, threw the mic back at him, got a second toss that he grabbed straight out of thin air. You've heard the term effortlessly cool thrown around a bunch recently. Knight at the start of this segment was the definition of effortlessly cool. Another monster pop for him at the entrance and start of his promo. He ran down his King of the Ring opponents for Friday and chose not to admonish fans for chanting OTC because he said he had conned the crowd, the OTC. Knight claimed Reigns' empire is on the verge of crumbling, so he's trying to hold on to power and keep everyone in the Bloodline vortex, which is why he's sure the Bloodline will interfere in his match to help Jay win and keep LA from moving forward. I found it interesting. He actually used the term Bloodline vortex. Knight then chided the Usos, saying unlike them, he'll put the Bloodline's name in his mouth all he wants because he doesn't take orders from Reigns. Then he shit on Adam Pearce for not being in Roman's pocket per se, but acting like referees in the NBA Finals, not treating the two sides equally. Knight said he may be unchosen in the eyes of WWE, but he chose himself and the fans have chosen him. He's never going to quit his pursuit of success in the company. After he dared Jay to fight on his own Friday, Jay entered on his own to his main event-ish entrance, getting his best reaction in a while, and even doing an encore as the fans demanded it. He looked reborn for a second. And you know what? He was certainly out of breath when it was over. The guy has absolutely no gas in the tank still after all this time. Basically, Jay just said that he was there to put Knight on notice and fire a warning shot. Ironically, it was Jay's best promo in a long time because it was short and it was pure passion. After he left the ring, though, Knight cut off the celebration. He again told fans he doesn't blame them for cheering Jay, and he told Jay he doesn't blame him for protecting his family. Knight reiterated the problem is how they operate together, and while he doesn't have an issue with Jay, quote, screw your family. Jay charged down to the ring, but Jimmy ran down to stop him. This was an unexpected home run segment for me. Knight was on fire, and having the crowd behind him so strongly, that was tremendous. He did not flub a single line in his promo, but beyond that, the content was on point, deftly kind of drawing these distinctions between him, Reigns, and Jay, accentuating his problems while telling fans he didn't hold them in negative regard, basically because everyone involved is technically a babyface wearing a different shade of gray. As I said, even Jay did well here, and it was surprisingly a strong preview for a King of the Ring quarterfinal match, which you do not always get. This was a no-brainer good. Clearly, we are getting Knight Jay in singles match opportunity at some point. My expectation is they cost one another in the quarterfinal. I think Vintage and I both said that previously. They wind up fighting in a singles match relatively soon, probably a main event of Raw, and then everything moves forward from there. We had Rollins, Saints, Javon Evans, and Tala in a King of the Ring quarterfinal on Raw, this main event of the show. Before it began, I assume on the international feed I was unable to watch. there was a segment that I'm about to describe right now, but it was Saints getting a rare stage interview where he said he joined the ranks of other famous monarchs the French knew about. He also received a whole chant during the match. Ricky Saints did. Tala pressed and tossed Javon out of the ring into the others. Evans retaliated by splashing Tala over the barricade into the timekeeper's area after the break. Javon caught Seth with Red Dot, flipped him into the corner with a Hurricanrana after it initially seemed like he was going to get caught with a powerbomb. Saints tagged Evans with a Revolution DDT for a near fall. And look, he's hit this move a bunch. I realized during this match, he really does have a super nice tornado DDT. He gets a lot of lift on the rope. So I'm glad that it's not his finisher anymore like it was briefly in NXT. It's a great signature move for him. Javon is so bouncy, he tried to catch Ricky on the ropes. He somehow overshot it and fully jumped out of the ring. He rebounded with a Spanish fly, only for Rollins to catch him with a pedigree for a broken fall. Michael Cole uttered the strangest pronunciation of Rochambeau in the history of mankind before Javon hit a tope splash into all three guys outside. Tala took the other three off the ropes with an attempted Tower of Doom, but Evans slipped out of it, so it instead became a pair of single-arm power bombs. Seth, interestingly, worked the most with Tala, stomping him into the top of the announce table and again off the barricade onto the floor after Tala had seemingly eliminated Javon with a chokeslam into the table. Ricky avoided the stomp, but Rollins escaped a Revolution DDT attempt, hit a stomp, only for Austin Theory to pull the referee out of the ring. Montez saved, attacked Theory into the crowd, but Braun Breaker spawned out of nowhere, speared Rollins to hell just as Saints was about to capitalize. Evans ran into the ring from out of nowhere, took him out with an OG cutter, as Rollins was painfully reaching but unable to break the fall. Javon getting the 1-2-3 and advancing into the semifinals of King of the Ring. Frustration over the Vision interfering and making what had been a clean, exciting four-way into another interference finish, that bothered me, obviously. But man, the booking of Javon winning this quarterfinal immediately calmed like the vast majority of that annoyance. This was the best of the first round matches wrestled at the time of its conclusion, and it was a hell of an end to Raw with a 22-year-old standing tall. Saints was probably the MVP of the entire match. Tala had his best showing in WWE by a mile. Seth was a big reason for that. Rollins got the visual win, and clearly the Vision shit, it's not going to go away. As nice as that sounded earlier in the show, it was also clear based on the promo at Reigns that he was not going to win this match. And if they did fight, as I said earlier, it would come through other means. His selling, Rollins at the end, was tremendous. It made the victory for Evans even sweeter. 4.25 stars. The best match of either tournament so far. And again, credit to Rollins. I think he's wrestled like 4 straight weeks on this tour on television, plus live events, most of it against younger guys. And he put, he didn't take the fall, but he helped visually put Javon over at the end of this match. So that kind of wraps up some of the men's stuff. Let's move over to the women for a while. Rhea Ripley entered the ring with a limp, her right knee wrapped. She was pleased to put the Jade Cargill chapter behind her, and she admitted to the visual injury as fans chanted at her in Italian. Ripley basically thanked Charlotte Flair for her unexpected help at Clash in Italy, so Flair entered saying that she surprised herself, growing to like and respect Rhea through teaming with her over the last few weeks. They apparently got matching tattoos as well. Charlotte said all of that may be true, but she would be standing in front of her at SummerSlam after winning King of the Ring when all is said and done. Tiffany Stratton, who as mentioned last week is not in that tournament, interrupted the proceedings, barely got a reaction from the crowd that was going nuts for most of the wrestlers. She said nothing of value besides wanting Ripley's title. Jade's crew then entered, similarly not getting a pop, though they did get real heat again after they started speaking. Cargill talked shit about taking out Alexa Bliss and told Stratton to stay out of grown folk business. There were some rowdy fans next to them who Jade surprisingly handled well. As the heels trucked toward the ring, Nick Aldis clarified that Rhea is not cleared, so Charlotte interrupted him, reminding that she and Tiffy may hate each other, but they hate the heels more. Extremely formulaic. Ripley and Flair was an interesting segment. The train that followed was an eye roll, particularly considering Stratton should not be involved here at all, and we've seen versions of this match so many times already. The only reason I'm going to give this light good over light bad is because Flair and Cargill are both in Queen of the Ring against one another on a future show, so there was a through line to continue their issues. This could have been made more interesting if Ripley went on commentary or something during the ensuing match. She absolutely could use the character time, the promo time, just the speaking into the mic. They got to give her more of those opportunities where she can come across natural and not canned in the middle of the ring. So we had Flair and Stratton against Cargill and Michin. To her credit, Charlotte hit the best version of her terrible cartwheel lariat over the last couple of years. Flair took Styles Clash from Michin, who who tried and failed to capitalize with a figure 4 leg lock. Stratton hit a rolling cutter on Cargill, only to get caught trying her cartwheel Alabama slam, which Jade turned into a Liger bomb. Tiffy countered Jaded into an attempted cover, following with a rolling senton, only for Jade to push her off the ropes while trying prettiest moonsault ever, hitting Jaded for the win. Correct winner, correct loser, and a match that largely exceeded expectations. Don't look now, okay? Don't look now. But Cargill is improving in general. Not just against sizable women like Ripley and Flair. She has truly stepped up her game to a different level over the last 3 to 4 months. No one is saying she's one of the best women's wrestlers in the world, but she is becoming a way more legitimate potential champion main eventer in WWE than she had been for the vast majority of her run. Now, Jade pinning Tiffy should result in a United States Championship match. After all,
you beat the champion to be able to beat the champion. That doesn't make any sense.
But it's possible WWE disregards that, considering everything else that's ongoing. Could always come back to it after the fact. Definite good. Love the work from all 4 women here, but especially Mi Chin, who continues to prove her value in the ring. She may never wind up being a singles champion or a huge character, but she can go, and there is tremendous value in that. Also, Charlotte is doing so well as a face these days, befriending all of her enemies. WWE could actually get someone heat if they turn on here. And that is a ridiculous turnaround when you consider the history of the Charlotte Flair character. Chelsea Green backstage told Stratton she would have gotten her back if Tiffy had only told her she was going to the ring. Stratton said she didn't believe she needed her, so Green assumed that meant she was trying to protect her from getting hurt. Chelsea then asked Tiffy to accompany her to the ring, but Stratton again denied her, remaining a terrible person. So we had Green against Lash Legend. Chelsea got dominated as expected, though she kicked out after a huge boot that looked to end the match. There was a horrific spot where Green held the top rope down, and Legend simply jumped over it on her own accord. Chelsea followed with a terrible cover where she only held down one shoulder. Lash ultimately powered out of Unpretty Her, deftly countering into Lash extension for the win. The final sequence was decently smooth and pretty cool looking. The match was awful. Awful. Green was not booked as if she could not contend, but you never actually believed in her. It was extremely slow and plodding, and Legend continues to prove, as far as I'm concerned, she does not have it. At least not yet, and at least not on the main roster. The size and her striking ability, it's there. But that's about where it ends. I'm noticing as I break this down that the match also went under 5 minutes, so that takes it from bad to straight up ugly.
That is one big pile of shit.
Bayley, Raquel Rodriguez, Jacy Jayne, and Kiana James fought in a Queen of the Ring quarterfinal. Liv Morgan and Fatal Influence were all backstage, or they all went backstage, I should say, while Kiana insisted Julia join her ringside. Bayley DeBelly nearly stole a win over Jacy. There was strong action here with Rodriguez regularly beasting. Kiana was thwarted, trying to cheat with the ropes. She thought it was Julia who pushed her feet off and started screaming at her when it was actually Jane who did it. Rodriguez ultimately prevailed from a 3-way finisher exchange, pinning James after hitting the Tahana Bomb. Michael Cole called Bayley's finisher a flatliner, the Rose Plant, which is awful, but it is not a flatliner. That would actually be a better finisher for Bayley. How he missed a veteran's move, I have no idea. I hate to say it, but it's pretty clear Cole is losing it. Julia helped Kiana up after the bell with cameras lingering, so you knew something was about to happen. James shoved her back and admonished her verbally, saying all she's done is try to help her and she's going to be nothing. So Julia attacked and got an extra pop considering WWE was in Italy. This turn was long desired and certainly teased the last few weeks, but it was far, far too light and too short of an attack considering the circumstances, especially because they were in Italy, which was smart planning, but they could have gotten an even bigger reaction if they let Julia lay it in strong style. I hope I speak for everyone when I say we wanted to see Kiana get laid out, not just take a few punches, but okay, at least our long international nightmare is over. Julia is free from the business bitch, and hopefully both of them get far better booking in the future. Julia should go over in their feud and then move to Raw as soon as possible. This was the best of the 3 quarterfinals completed at the time it ended, just considering it got plenty of time, 5 minutes more than either match on Raw, and all 4 women were allowed to stand out in different ways. Bayley was unsurprisingly the MVP. Raquel winning was a nice surprise considering I assumed it would be either Bayley or Jacy advancing. She faces Io Sky next. That should be fun. This got parts of 3 segments and it was simply well done across the board. Good. The only part of this that was a tad frustrating is that the result is we are getting another Io and Raquel match, which is definitely not that fresh. As a brief aside, watching the introductions for this match, it was super interesting because Raquel came out first with an above average theme. Then Bayley entered with her extremely mediocre track. JC comes out with the Fatal Influence. And then Kiana trots out there with the laziest backing track you have ever heard. Presentation matters so much in WWE. That's why it's infuriating that Bayley and Kiana are stuck with crap, but especially Kiana. Like Bayley, we've at least gotten used to it when the first, not beat, but the first note drops. We know it's her. The Kiana James theme is truly horrendous. Judgment Day met later backstage with Roxanne Perez absent. As Liv explained, she was still sulking from the loss last week. Liv praised Raquel for winning on her own, saying she can't wait for them to meet in the finals with the winner taking the title off of Rhea. When Dominic Mysterio got excited for King of the Ring, Morgan said that they can be king and queen together, which Rodriguez pointed out flew in the face of what she had just said, and her disposition when Morgan kind of ignored her completely changed. It's not an automatic good for Judgment Day Clubhouse, but it's close. And this is certainly something that fit, as it not only developed Raquel's situation, but that of Roxy too, especially considering what happened later in the show. JC was ranting to Fatal Influence backstage when she was interrupted for an interview. JC screamed about how she's on a different level than the rest of the women when they came across Paige and Brie Bella during a photo shoot. Jane played a distraction, so Influence could assault the champions, with Brie taking a massive header into the road case. This was executed incredibly well. They picked up the tag team titles, laughed, and then dropped them on the champions' bodies. As I said last week, if the titles are not going from Brie and Paige straight to Bayley and Lyra Valkyria, Influence should be the transitional champions. Give them an impressive accolade early in their careers by beating a couple legend, and create a true face-heel matchup at SummerSlam with Bayley and Lyra. Hopefully. The attack was well done. This was the most important that Influence felt in a month. This gets a good. So Liv, Becky Lynch, Chelsea, and Alexa Bliss were all in the Queen of the Ring quarterfinal. Liv ducked out at the bell as Chelsea twice failed to make friends, but she was the featured party throughout this match and the most over babyface. Morgan hit a sunset flip powerbomb on Green, broken with Twisted Bliss. Alexa caught Becky with the basement blockbuster, then landed Sister Abigail on Bliss, but Lynch took her off the cover with a manhandle slam, only to eat unpretty her from Chelsea. However, Liv took Green off of her cover with a jackknife for the stolen 1-2-3 to advance. This meant 3 of the 4 semifinalists in Queen of the Ring are Raw superstars. As a women's champion, Liv could not enter this tournament and lose immediately. I saw a lot of outrage out there. How didn't they put Chelsea forward? Why didn't they give Bliss an opportunity? Because Liv is the champion. You've been complaining about her not wrestling and not having a challenger. And if you're putting her in this tournament, she needs to outsmart these other women and win at least one match. That's why she got the dub. My guess is Judgment Day tries to help her in the semifinal. Stephanie Vaquer returns to prevent it. That reignites their feud for Night of Champions and gives Morgan an excused loss for that show. This match exceeded expectations for sure. Chelsea was not only the featured woman, I think she was the overall MVP. Tremendous showing by her. Everyone worked well, including Bliss, which is not always the case. Again, this was too short at under 10 minutes. It was like 9+, but the work was solid, and this gets a good. Raquel got a promo package on Raw talking about being fully focused on moving past Io Sky and continuing her path towards singles gold in WWE. She reminded that she beat Io in their last match, fully stacking her for the pinfall and clearly having her number. Rodriguez said she'd beat Sky, win Queen of the Ring, and then take down Io's best friend Ripley for the WWE Championship at SummerSlam. She said Judgment Day would then take over the entire division, and Io should be there in Minnesota. That way Rhea has a shoulder to cry on. Io later said that she takes seriously the task Asuka put on her shoulders before leaving, and while Raquel is talented, she has no honor and no heart. All she does is work to protect Liv. Sky promised to put Judgment Day in their place and become world champion again. These were really well done. Even though they have fought before and they have their own history, mid-tournament, you don't necessarily need to get too deep into stuff like this, but they actually did. And I think the match on, I guess, next Monday night will be better for it. This was good. Roxy backstage on Raw told Liv that she was being selfish last week, given her depression about losing in the tournament. She is now focused on helping Morgan and Rodriguez win for the betterment of the faction. Morgan was listening to her, but as soon as Dom entered the clubhouse, Liv completely stopped paying attention to Roxy, turned her back on her, basically proving that she only sees her as someone who exists to benefit her and nothing more. It's been a few weeks now that this has been alluded to based on how Morgan acts with Perez, and it does feel like this may all be coming to a head sooner than later. I appreciate the way, I don't want to call it, it is acting. I'm not saying she's like an incredible actress, but I love the way Liv has been playing this. and the way Raquel and Roxy have responded to it visually with their facial expressions, it is telling a story that they are not otherwise sharing verbally. And sometimes that's important, especially in WWE, where they beat you over the head with so many things. This was good. Intercontinental Championship, Sol Ruca defending against Lyra Valkyria. Bayley was super supportive with a hint of frustration at Lyra's opportunity, gassing her up before the match. It's here I learned, and I don't know how I missed this. Sol is being billed from Honolulu, Hawaii, when she's from California. It seems like a totally unnecessary billing. She gives, as the kids say, California granola surfer girl. Nothing about her says Hawaiian other than adjacent beach activities, which also happen in California. Sol got a new chant from an inventive Paris crowd, which also sang her entrance tune before the bell. Ruka ducked in Seguri in a nice spot before Lyra did a cartwheel for no reason whatsoever. Then Sol did a walking handstand and a matrix avoidance, leading to an X Factor. This was an absurd sequence in a bad way. You want to do one of those spots? Okay, sure. You each want to do one spaced out over 30 seconds? I'll buy it. Doing 4 of them in a row, it was silly, especially the absolute nothing cartwheel, and it degrades the match that doesn't need that shit because they're both talented and able to go in the ring. Valkyria caught Ruka's dumb springboard 360 lariat, then literally powered her over the ropes in a clunky spot. Sol landed a nice German suplex to conclude a long sequence, following with a massive dropkick that shot Lyra across the ring in a running knee. Valkyria answered with a nice flying leg drop as Ruka was draped over the top rope, plus a spinning heel kick chaser. Sol did half of a handstand flip out of a tornado DDT, so Lyra followed suit with a handstand to avoid an X Factor plus a basement dropkick. Much, much better sequence than what we covered a moment ago because it was legitimate. It happened during the course of action, and you believed they were real counters. Nightwing and Soul Snatcher were both avoided, but Valkyria got her leg caught in the ropes, missing a kick, and Ruka was able to take her out of the ropes and take advantage of the situation with her best main roster Soul Snatcher to date, retaining the title. Excellent work for a 10-minute bout, and the WWE match of the week at the time it concluded, over an hour into Raw on Monday night. There's no question that WWE has made strides with the women's booking. 9 to 10 minutes now seems to be the minimum for notable matches, but if they all get that exact same amount of time, it's difficult for any of them to stand out from the others. This one should have been 15 minutes to truly build the intensity and tension between two of the youngest talents with the highest future ceilings on the main roster. But I have a feeling there are concerns about Ruka working a long match at this point, and that's why she's not getting them. Every time she is in the ring, it is clear Sol either forgets spots or gets in her head and has to pause because she does not know what's coming next. She's incredibly talented with an extremely high ceiling. But again, I've been saying this before she got called up. She is not fully formed yet as a wrestler, and she was not ready for prime time. She needed another 6 to 9 months in NXT at a minimum, and a run with the main title down there would have done her well. Valkyria got a bit of an excused loss with the mishap. She sold her ass off in this match. She's such a great worker, someone who is the opposite of Sol. She is more than ready for a big featured spot in a main title run. She should be a main eventer on the main roster right now. Ruka received a much needed clean win here for her, gimmick and character, just being a new champion. I'm giving it 3.75 stars and B+, because much of the work was good, and certainly that's the grade for the match. But if Sol does this exact same match a year from now, you're talking about maybe an A- or an A. And not as clunky, not forgetting the spots and stuff like that. Blake Monroe received another promo package, this time focused on Stratton, saying her rise to the top has been impressive, and it's like looking in a mirror seeing her be successful on SmackDown. She said their meeting will be a box office event that fans are dying to see. But if you scratch below the surface, Stratton is a princess who does not want to get her hands dirty, and Tiffy Time will soon be running on Monroe minutes. Second week in a row where this was knocked out of the park, which begs the question, why did we just get utter bullshit for the first month? And why did you bring her to TV a couple weeks ago for 5 seconds if she's still, quote, coming soon? And as I've said before, why the hell is she not on Raw, considering all the new women on SmackDown? Still, this was an undoubted good, having her go after another champion on the brand. The presentation and everything to this point is working. She just needs to, get booked on television. And now I'm pretty confident that she's not going to be making her debut until London. Finn Balor got what seemed like a significant promo package that recapped his WWE career. It ended with him saying that he doesn't just want more, he wants it all. I thought it was about to be 2 detailed minutes. Instead, it was rather boilerplate. I guess it served as his official transfer announcement. He's in a 4-way this week on SmackDown for King of the Ring. And you know what? he should probably win it if WWE is actually going to be pushing him as a notable talent on the blue brand, especially considering it's easy to excuse the other 3 men involved in the match not prevailing. No grade here. The Miz learned that Kit Wilson was again denied entry to Europe as he brought 4 emotional support cats with him on the plane. Miz ranted about Danhausen's curse leading to the Cavaliers losing the NBA playoffs and Myles Garrett getting traded from the Browns when he came across Danhausen's laboratory and started wrecking shop despite warnings otherwise. Yes, I said laboratory instead of laboratory. I'm just having some fun. It's in Europe. He ultimately grabbed onto an exposed wire that electrocuted him. This was the best segment the last few weeks, without a doubt. Danhausen was much funnier here overall. Huge step up from recent skits. And I love how Danhausen always refers to Mike as The Miz, not Miz. Like, hey, The Miz, every single time. It's very funny. I'm curious whether one day soon Miz realizes Danhausen has actually respected him this entire time and that he's just been wasting the talents of someone willing to buy in and get his back. I'm not entirely sure what the end goal here is going to be, but for a segment, yes, I will give this a good as well. So that wraps up this week's WWE edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. I forgot to mention it earlier, so let me do right now that here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
So please check us out, buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. If you sign up over there, it's only $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. But for your contributions, you will get instant reactions to every major show and exclusive news analysis posts every week. And I know the instant reactions have been down for the last 2 weeks because Silver King has been traveling and very busy with the NBA. We're going to have a news analysis post for you on Friday or Saturday, talking a lot of stuff in WWE, and we will get those instant reactions started next week. Regardless, it's $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. Buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We would greatly appreciate the support. It keeps the lights on here at Getting Over, allows us to continue doing the show. In terms of our next episode, now, of course, it's originally scheduled for Thursday, talking all things NXT and AEW. As I mentioned earlier, Vintage and the Silver King are going to connect. I'm going to speak with him and have him provide his biggest hitters from WWE this week. So topics that we've already covered, but his take on them. My plan is to do that on Thursday, and I'm hoping that I'm able to watch NXT as well. If I can do that, that is the next episode you'll get. You'll either get it at some point later Thursday, possibly early on Friday. So you will get a second episode this week. I'm just not going to have the time to watch 4+ hours of AEW before I jump on, travel and start getting home, going from New York to Florida. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to have time to do it. I don't exactly know what that means. Do I double dose AEW next week in the Thursday spot? Possibly. We've done that before. It's worked. Does something happen on Dynamite Wednesday that does not allow me to do it? Perhaps I shove some AEW stuff into the WWE show on Tuesday. Do we create an extra episode? These are all questions that Silver King is posing without having answers for you. The point is, there will be plenty of performance-enhancing audio making its way into your ear holes over the next week and a half, and of course, through the end of the year, as there always is. What I can tell you for sure is that at some point Thursday or Friday, we will talk WWE with Vintage and NXT with the Silver King, and then AEW TBD, but we absolutely will be hitting it at the latest next Thursday in its normal spot. We would do a double dose in that case. On the way out, let me remind you to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show on YouTube. You can listen to the show, obviously, when you subscribe over there. You can watch full-length video interviews. Follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. And please do not forget,
it's all about the 5.
Head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Thank you all for your patience this week, not just with the timing of the shows, but the audio quality. Not even able to record on my normal program. I've been having issues with Adobe Audition, which is what I normally use. Can't figure it out. Hopefully I will when I get home. But we're going to wrap up this show. We'll be back Thursday or Friday talking WWE and NXT. We'll have some bonus content for our Buy Me a Coffee subscribers this weekend. And then we'll be back on track with our normal schedule and our normal episodes next Tuesday when we again talk all things WWE. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.